Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to a brand new episode of Boss Babes. I'm your host, Brittany Baldy, and this is definitely not your typical sports show, as you guys know. Today we have a very special guest. His name is Patrick Ganino. He's actually an entrepreneur and the most realistic muralist you will ever find. And he's actually a really good friend of mine. Pat, how the heck are you? And we've known each other for what, like 6, 7, 8, 9 years now?
I know it's crazy, right? It's amazing. So it's been a while. Yeah, I'm great. I'm great. I love seeing you online, everything you're doing and your travels, and social media is such a cool thing because we still get to stay in touch without having to necessarily stay in touch with our busy lives.
I completely agree with that. And as you just mentioned, you enjoy following what I'm doing. I, of course, love watching what you are doing. For those of you guys that don't know about Patrick, you're going to get to know him in this great episode. But when I tell you this guy is one of the most talented muralists I've ever seen, everything is so realistic and lifelike. It literally looks 3D. It's like bizarre. So please stay tuned. We are going to be talking with Patrick. But Pat, how the heck did you and I even meet? I think we got introduced by our friend Alexis a while ago.
I think that's what it was. I was actually talking about you this morning, and I was like, I don't even know how I met Brittany. But we met and we just kind of clicked and we just stayed friends ever since. But I think it was Alexis. I think you're correct.
For the backstory, if you guys don't know, I'm from Massachusetts. Patrick is actually from Connecticut. We're going to be touching upon that very shortly. But one of our friends, Alexis, actually used to work with Patrick, and her and I were friends, and she kind of connected Pat and I. And here we are, friends 7, 8, 9 years later, and love how we both collaborate creatively and just stay in touch. But let's hop right into it. So we've already poked the bear a little bit. Patrick actually grew up right in Middleton, Connecticut. So let's discuss the fact that you grew up right in the New England area, up north, not that far from where I'm from. So you actually grew up with a sister, and you grew up in a neighborhood full of kids. And you actually mentioned to me that you had amazing parents that let you basically be very entrepreneurial at a young age. Let's kind of discuss what it was like being a child, growing up in Connecticut, and having a ton of friends at such a young age.
Yeah, I mean, it was amazing. I mean, I lived on this little street called Clover Street, and my elementary school was right up the block. And there's probably 20, 25 kids in the neighborhood, all different ages. And we all kind of just hung out, played together, did our thing, ran through backyards together. And as we got older, we found odd jobs to do for the neighbors, like mowing lawns, and we got dirt bikes. And we just kind of, we ran around the neighborhood like we owned it. It was a very interesting, looking back, I'm sure the neighbors were like, oh, these kids are running through our yard again. But it was fun. It was great. And yeah, I mean, I have 2 Italian parents, great Italian sort of, family, large, lots of cousins, just always had people at our house. So whether we were running around with kids in the neighborhood or my parents having uncles and aunts or cousins or friends they met. My father was a commercial insurance agent and very social guy, little sort of tubby Italian guy, 5'6", and he just loved people, loved having people over the house. So it wasn't uncommon that even aunts and uncles or cousins that were moving back to the state would live with us for periods of time until they found a place or bought a house and so on and so forth. So it was great social atmosphere.
Sounds like you guys were very family and friend oriented, which is great. I mean, you're very much so a people person currently. So it seems like you got that aspect from your parents at a young age, being around people, get outside, have fun, and just basically live your life. And I love the fact that you mentioned they allowed you to kind of be that free bird and be entrepreneurial. When you were a young kid, how did they recognize that in you at such a young age?
I don't know if they necessarily recognized it. I think it came from the fact that, my mother's father was, he was in the service, and my father's father was, old school Italian, and they were just very strict parents for them. So my parents, I think, came together and they decided they were going to do it almost to the opposite spectrum, where there was like almost a little too much freedom, if you really want to, be honest about it. They were just so happy about anything I did. I mean, my father and mother I'd show them something, they would be like, you're amazing. I mean, they were just really thrilled seeing, me do anything sort of creative or entrepreneurial. And it could go from drawing pictures or creating little businesses, in elementary school and 7th grade. And, I ended up doing door-to-door sales when I was like 15 with my best friend. And I think they just found it interesting, the route that I was going.
That's a blessing that they were able to embrace the fact that you were young and creative and you like to wear many hats as you do currently. Yeah. And I admire that because I feel like many parents try to steer their kids in one direction. Like, no, you got to be a lawyer. No, you got to be a doctor. You have to do this. You have to do that. So I find it very admirable that your parents were kind of like, you know what, Pat, you're killing it. You're crushing it. You're young. Explore, see what you like. And whatever they did back in the day worked to your benefit now because you are wearing many hats currently. Stay tuned, guys, and continue listening to Pat. You guys are going to get to know all about him and the many hats that he wears, everything from working with professional athletes, traveling, and painting the most realistic murals you will ever see. He owns restaurants, you name it. This man does it all. He is very highly involved in the social media world as well. So, Pat, let's continue talking a little bit about your childhood.
Mm-hmm.
What were some of your favorite holidays as a child? And let's talk about you and your sister. Were you guys like competitive when you were younger?
No. My sister and I are very, very different. We're cut from a different cloth. We have a great relationship. I love her. She's an amazing person. But she was a little bit more introverted. She was more interested in school and scholastics. And she's actually currently a teacher in Durham, Connecticut. And she's got a beautiful little kid named Atticus and a husband named Chad, and great little family. And she's conservative and I'm not.
Totally cool. So it sounds like you guys, like you mentioned, are cut from two different types of cloth. Very similar to my family. I have a brother and a sister. For you guys that are listening and don't know that, my brother and sister are very much so. They work like that 9-to-5 job. They have that steady paycheck coming in. And I'm that one that, as Pat knows from a young age, traveling to New York, living in LA, chasing that dream and being very creative.
You're living life. You're living life, Brittany.
Both of us are just living our dreams, Pat, and it's great. And it's so cool to have like those highs and those lows in our careers as well, which you and I will speak about later on if we get to that topic. What were some of your favorite holidays as a child? I know you just talked about your sister and how you guys are slightly different, but still pretty close. Did you enjoy Christmas? Did you like Thanksgiving? Did you like to dress up for Halloween?
Yeah, I would say Thanksgiving was my favorite holiday, and then Christmas right after. Thanksgiving mainly because I love having all the cousins get together. I mean, we'd have this long table when I was a child, and it would be my grandparents and my cousins and my aunts and my uncles, and it was just a huge party. I mean, it was a huge party. The wine was flowing, the food was flowing, and it was just an amazing experience, like to just do that, and have that. And we still try to now. Family moves away a little bit here, a little bit there, but I would say still that we have a large family gathering for Christmas and Thanksgiving.
As far as Thanksgiving goes, I know you guys are Italian. Did you guys have the typical turkey, or did you guys have have meatballs and sauce? Did you have a combination of the both? What did you guys eat on Thanksgiving?
We did a little bit of everything. I mean, my cousin, he's a chef, so he would go crazy cooking, and he still does today. He actually does Christmas Day. We do a dinner that night at his house, and he puts on a huge spread with like venison, and they're all hunters, so they literally go out and hunt, and we have boar and venison and things like that.
So I wanted to ask you, we're on the topic of family. It sounds like you are very close to your family. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like you had lots of family parties. Straight out of your mouth, you said crazy Italian aunts, uncles, and cousins. Is there any big party in particular that sticks out to you that you can tell that story of from when you were younger or a teenager, whether it be a holiday or a birthday party that sticks out?
I mean, as far as like growing up, it was pretty typical. The wine, the beer, playing bocce in the backyard, that type of stuff. Different aunts getting in arguments with each other. The typical Italian stuff. We're just like, what the heck just happened? Someone storms out, all the chaos because we're such hot-blooded individuals. But one that stands out would be later on, actually, when I met my wife, and it was the first time I brought her to a holiday, and I brought her to my Aunt Linda's house, and she was doing, she does Easter. And we went there, and it's her first time meeting my whole family. So we're all sitting there, just imagine a long table and just people all around it. And, we're having drinks, we're socializing, blah, blah, blah. She leans over to me at one point, and she's like, I'm so embarrassed. And I was like, why are you embarrassed? And she's like, I'm like drunk in front of your family. And I go, look around, they're all drunk, and that's typically what it is,
I love that story. And I actually find that really amazing because I actually know Pat's wife very well. She's super cool. She's the most sweetest woman you will ever meet. Pat has actually been with his wife since he was 22 years old. And we will be speaking about his marriage later on because obviously we have to touch upon his family. It's such a big topic in his life. But I think that's super hilarious that your wife was kind of like, oh my gosh, Pat, this is like one of my first times meeting them. We're at a holiday party. I'm kind of drunk. Like, what do I do? And you were like, yo, chill out, babe.
Right.
Totally fine. Everybody else around you is enjoying their life and having a good time. So
exactly.
I absolutely love that. And I also wanted to ask you being so free-spirited and fun, and it sounds like your family just loved having a good time. Birthday parties, when you were a kid or in your teens, is there any birthday party in particular? Like, did you guys have like a pool party? Did you go to the movie theater? Paint the picture of some of your birthday parties that you celebrated when you were a child.
think it was different back then. I mean, we didn't have like it wasn't, sports have changed, birthdays have changed. Like, even having my children when they were young, it was always like going to these parties and upping one another and having a bigger party and having a clown and da da da, all that type of stuff. We were kids, man. We just, it was the local pizza place. It was Mazzadas. We'd order some pizzas. The kids would come over. They'd bring you the gifts. You have the pizza and then you leave. I mean, there was nothing necessarily like spectacular. I mean, they were always fun and always, interesting. But I'm a March baby, so it was wintertime, pizza and friends.
It sounds like you had a really fun, low key childhood, but you also went out there and had fun and had a good time. And you're correct. Back in the day, it does sound like you guys had like the birthdays with the cake and probably the piñatas and the gifts, but you guys didn't go all out. Like nowadays, it's like, I remember when I was a kid, we literally our parents would like rent limos for us and we would go to like the club and stuff. And now, I don't know. And now it's like COVID.
We get the bounce houses, we rent the bounce houses and stuff like that. It's like I couldn't even imagine that as a kid. I mean, my parents were like, here's your pizza,
Yeah, renting the bounce houses and the ponies. But that's super cute that you guys had like the local pizza and everybody around. You guys are now listening to Patrick Ganino, really good friend of mine. He is an entrepreneur, muralist, you name it. This guy wears so many hats and he's so freaking talented. Please stick with us. I'm your host, Brittany Baldy. We are now currently talking about Pat and where he grew up. He grew up right in Connecticut. He had a sister. He grew up in a really great neighborhood where everybody was close. He comes from an amazing Italian family where his mom and dad actually allowed him to be very entrepreneurial, which now currently benefits him in his adult life. Travel stories. Before we switch on over to sports and what you did being active as a kid, do you have any great travel stories you could share or like a funny family memory?
You know what? We didn't really travel. I mean, I think we went to Texas one time with my parents. I mean, we didn't travel a lot. My parents were wicked homebodies. I mean, they brought the fun to the house. I mean, people were at the house. We had parties, we had events all the time. But as far as traveling goes, my father wasn't much of a traveler. I mean, like I said, we went to Texas one time because my aunt and uncle moved there. And I think maybe we went to Florida once, but we weren't a big traveling family.
Still fun though. You guys brought the fun to the house, which is amazing. And it sounds like you played some sports when you were younger. So Pat was involved with soccer and track. Did you play in middle school, high school? What was that whole experience like getting involved, being active as a kid and teen?
Well, again, sports were very different back then. I mean, it wasn't so intense. There weren't all these travel leagues and so on and so forth. But I played on a soccer team. Middletown was heavy Italian, so it was soccer since I was a little kid. And I think I played up until high school. And then high school, I did football for 2 years. And then I went into track, and I was a sprinter. So I did like the 100, the 200, and I was on the 4x1 team. And we were actually pretty good. I mean, I was like the only white kid on the field. But we ended up getting 4th in state and 8th in New England. So it was fun.
I know now that your athleticism has passed on to your son. He's actually a really talented wrestler. We'll speak about that later on in this episode. But what do you think is the importance of being active and involved in sports at such a young age? What types of skills do you think it develops in kids?
I think it's discipline, it's social, it's everything. I mean, watching my kids, my youngest is on cross country and indoor track. And my middle guy is wrestling. He does outdoor track, and the camaraderie you have with those people, and the challenges to be better and to train, and to be healthy and strong. I mean, I think you can't beat it. I mean, I started lifting weights when I was. I think my parents got me a bench when I was in like 6th or 7th grade, and I remember it was 4 or 5 years ago. I got my son a bench for Christmas, and he was just kind of like, oh. But then he started using it, and he started getting ripped and big, and he kind of glowed up from his 8th grade to 9th grade. And the girls were digging him, and then he was like, all right, I get it. And it obviously helped with wrestling. He became strong, and it's just anytime you're working out or being fit or involved in some sort of activity with other people, only positive things can come from.
Completely agree with that answer. I super love that answer because I believe getting your kids active, whether it be on a team where you're playing individually or if you're even just working out in your basement, as long as you're active and using those skills to stay fit, I think is super important, which is part of the reason why I started this sports podcast. I want people to understand the benefits of getting into stuff active at a young age. And teams as a kid, exactly. Teams as a kid, you were highly into watching the Celtics, the Giants, and the Bulls. What was your inspiration behind watching those particular teams? Obviously the Celtics because you grew up in Connecticut, but why the Giants and the Bulls? I know you're a big Michael Jordan fan, which we will speak about shortly, but why those teams, Pat?
So being in Connecticut, we're right in the middle of New York and Boston. So it's a weird mix of, Giants, New England Patriots, Celtic, you know what I mean? It's just a weird sort of mix. And my father and his sort of Italian side of the family are from Stamford, Connecticut, which is pretty much over the line of New York. So you've got basically big Giant fans there. So we were always watching the Giants growing up. As I got older, I started watching New England because I became my own person and so on and so forth. But growing up, we watched the Giants. And that was it, And the Celtics, I mean, when I was a kid, Larry Bird was hot. And the Larry Bird Magic sort of era was, that amazing sort of period where basketball sort of thrived again. And I mean, who didn't love Bird or Magic, really,
That actually is a really valid point. So with Pat growing up in Connecticut, it seems natural to watch both teams in New York and the New England area. So I totally love the fact that you currently now watch probably the Patriots. You probably are still a Giants fan.
Maybe and now Tampa Bay. Now we're watching Tampa Bay a little bit, right?
Oh my gosh, we are like rooting for Tampa Bay as if they are the Patriots this year. I literally made it my point. I made a Facebook post the other day. I was like, so Tampa Bay just won the championship. So does that mean that New England gets a complimentary duck boat tour? Like, I feel like we need one because of Rob Gronkowski and Tom Brady. Hello, where's our duck boat parade?
Yeah, and what's cool was the Patriots made a tweet or whatever it was. I forget where they posted it, but they were so, they're always good with that. And they were like, listen, congratulations to the greatest of all time. And it was kind of cool. You know what I mean? Like they support him. He did so much for them. And it was classy move on their part, I thought.
Very classy. I think that they also realized that he will have his number probably retire with the Patriots. So, and 100%. I mean, how many more years does the guy have left? Maybe 2 or 3 tops. So at the end of the day, I truly believe he's always going to be a New England Patriot and he's going to retire with us. So it is what it is. So keep on supporting Tom Brady, Pat. I enjoy it.
Yeah, totally. And then the Bulls came later on when I went down to Florida when I was about 19 and I lived there for a few years. And so we used to go to the Miami Heat games, and I one year I snagged tickets to the playoffs between the Bulls and the Heat, and it was awesome. And this is when Rodman and Jordan and Pippen, they were all on the court. It was just a very cool experience. And how do you not love somebody who's great like that? Just watching what he does and the way he holds himself. It was very cool.
Did you ever go to any games in person? And who did you enjoy those games with? Did you go with at the time, probably your girlfriend, Allie, or did you go with your friends, your family? Who did you enjoy these games with? And what were some of your favorite places that you stayed at when you went to go watch these games?
Well, when I went to see Miami, I was living down in Boca Raton, Florida, and that's really where I started my mural career. And I lived with my friend Jim and this girl named Beth. And Leslie and her boyfriend had gotten in a fight, and they had 2 tickets to the playoff game. So I ended up buying from them, and I ended up going with some girl named Martine. We had a good time. Prior to that, I'd gone with my friend Jim and so on and so forth. So we just kind of, we didn't really have any money. So like when we had money and the situation arrived, we would go to it.
Are there any games in particular that stick out in your mind, whether it be a specific championship that you watched with the Chicago Bulls or a Celtics game where Larry Bird put up a ton of points? Are there any games from your youth that you remember that stick out in particular?
Yeah, I mean, Giants when they were winning back in the day. I loved boxing. I watched boxing with my uncle, who was really heavily into boxing. And I remember having my friend JR over my house. I was in 7th grade. And it was the night that Tyson lost to Douglas. And it was just a crazy, like the energy with me and just this kid in the room going nuts over it was insane.
I think it's amazing that you're sitting here listing off of these great athletes that you loved watching back in the day, like the Larry Bird, the Magic Johnson, Mike Tyson, and here you are. And now, flash forward, you're still pretty young, but you're over here freaking painting murals of these people and meeting up with them in person and collaborating. So stay tuned, guys. You are now listening to Patrick Ganino, very good friend of mine, entrepreneur, muralist, you name it. This guy does so much. He is actually from Connecticut. He's both a freaking New England sports fan and a New York fan, which makes sense because he grew up smack dab in the middle of both places. Please stay tuned with us because next up, we're going to be talking about some of his sports idols, both Larry Bird and Michael Jordan. But before we get into that, I'm going to pop up this phone number because you guys know I love Green Team Junk Removal. Please give them a call at 508-361-0519. Again, guys, 508-361-0519. Green Team Junk Removal. Great people. Fred Cullen is actually, today's his birthday, so shout out to Fred Cullen. He's the owner. Give them a call if you need any items removed, whether it be an old TV, an old microwave, any types of junk that you need removed. He will get rid of it in an eco-friendly manner. 80% of what they haul actually gets donated to different types of people like Habitats for Humanity, and nothing ends up in a landfill. So everything is eco-friendly following the COVID protocol. So please give Green Team Junk Removal a call again at 508-361-0519. And shout out to Fred. Happy freaking birthday. You rock. But let's just hop right back into it. So Pat,
Yeah.
you actually loved watching Larry Bird back in the day. So for those of you guys that don't know who Larry Bird is, you're obviously living under a rock, but I'm going to read off some stats of him just in case you don't know who he is. So Larry Bird, Larry the Legend, widely regarded as one of the greatest basketball players of all time. Selected by the Boston Celtics in the 70s, he was a 12-time NBA All-Star, 3-time NBA MVP, 3-time NBA champion, and the list goes on and on. I can't sit here and read it all. But I wanted to ask you, Pat, why Larry Bird? Obviously, you were a Celtics fan, but why Larry?
And I remember it was 8th grade, and I had that. I don't know if you remember the old starter jackets. They were like they were almost like look metallic. You know, they had that shine to them. So I had the Celtics jacket. He was awesome. I mean, you know, he was sort of he was that player that, you know, passed unbelievably. He made shots. He was, you know, trash talked. I mean, he was awesome. He was just a great player. You know, it was always every game was fun to watch, right?
I do remember the starter jackets, actually. I never actually owned one. I think my brother had a Chicago Bulls one, but I do remember it. It had like the little front pocket in the front. It kind of looked like a windbreaker a little bit.
Yeah.
I do remember the starter jackets. Now we want to talk about Michael Jordan a little bit. So obviously everybody listening must know who Michael Jordan is, but for those of you that might not, if you're listening in from a different country or something, Michael Jordan literally is known globally and culturally to be one of the biggest sports icons of all time. I would say he's up there probably with Tom Brady once Tom Brady retires, probably with Tiger Woods. He helped popularize the NBA in the 80s and 90s, selected by the Chicago Bulls in the first round, 3rd overall in 1984. In 1985, he was the NBA Rookie of the Year. 14-time NBA All-Star, 5-time NBA MVP, 6-time NBA champion. And I didn't even know this, but his number is retired. So obviously number 23, Jumpman. 23 is retired both by the Chicago Bulls and the Miami Heat. So did you know that his number was also retired by the Miami Heat?
I didn't. How did that happen?
I don't know. When I was like doing research on him, I was like, I wonder why. So we're going to have to look into that. Why Michael Jordan? Obviously, it's probably pretty obvious, but is there a particular reason why you enjoyed watching Michael Jordan as well?
Why wouldn't you? I mean, just amazing. You know, it's crazy. 2 3-peats. Have you heard what's happening with like his rookie card lately?
I have not. I don't know. It's probably worth a crap ton of money though. I'd assume that.
So years ago, a friend of mine, Darren Prince, who runs Prince Marketing Group, and he introduced me to a lot of these athletes in the first place, connected me with a guy named Jason Kuntz. Jason Kuntz owns Otia Sports. He's probably one of the most reputable guys in the sports card industry and just a great guy in general. And a few years back, we were talking, and the rookie card came up, and I ended up getting like a PSA 9 Jordan rookie. At the time, it was worth like $5.5 grand. It's selling for like $70,000 now. All of his cards have skyrocketed up since the documentary, and also now people are sort of coming into this sports card world, and all the cards are going up like nuts, and it's amazing.
That is amazing. I believe within the next 10 or 20 years, that card will probably be worth even more, along with all of his signature sneakers that he has out. Like that guy, that's probably another reason why you idolize Michael Jordan. Not only is he an extravagant former NBA player, but the guy also, I believe, owns the Charlotte Hornets. He has a sneaker brand. Like the guy, he played baseball for a little bit. Like that guy has his hands in a little bit of everything.
All these top players in the NBA are still wearing his sneakers.
It's wild. Like it's so bizarre to see how Michael Jordan is transitioning into a businessman now after playing basketball for so long. And I actually fully enjoyed watching his documentary. That was like the one thing that got me through COVID last year. I was like, I wish that it was longer than like the 6 or 7 episodes. Did you enjoy watching The Last Dance? Of course you did, because freaking Rodman was in it too. Yeah,
dude. I knew. You know how many people were in there that I've met, whether it be Carmen Electra, Rodman, Magic Johnson. I mean, it was amazing to see them all on there. And I watched it twice. I mean, it was such a big hit for ESPN, especially because COVID had just started and people were like kind of down, and it just blew everything up a little bit.
I completely agree. And it was very well put together. It was interesting seeing Carmen Electra on there and everybody just like coming together. I loved hearing the story about his father and how his father influenced him.
Yeah.
And I kind of like how it got into a little bit of the gambling that he was involved with and how he
And
played
how about
baseball
that fact that he
briefly.
didn't like Nike?
I do remember that, him not wanting to go to Nike. It was probably a smart move, though, because look what he's doing now.
Yeah, of course.
But now that we're on the topic of sports, you guys are, again, now listening to Patrick Ganino. We are talking all about the fact that he grew up in Connecticut. He idolized Michael Jordan and Larry Bird, probably in the past and present, like we're speaking about right now. You crush it just like Bird and Jordan. As we just mentioned, Michael Jordan is an entrepreneur, an athlete. He does it all, and so does Pat. The first thing we're going to touch upon is the fact that Patrick is highly involved with opening up restaurants. And you create the murals, you help out with the menus, I believe, you help with the drinks. Let's discuss your most recent restaurant, Herd, which I've been there before, so I can attest to the fact that the food is absolutely delicious.
You've been to both places.
I've been to both places. Chef Serge is incredible. Does Chef Serge still work with you?
I just saw him the other day, and he's doing great, and he's a great guy. I love him, and John and Dave and, my partners there were really great. And it's not that I run restaurants or open restaurants. I kind of fall into these situations over and over again. And I find them fun and interesting. I think I'm a little ADD. So I try to keep life lively, and restaurants are fun because you can throw events there. I love throwing the events there and the parties there and doing all the marketing. And I love designing the interiors and all that type of stuff. So that's where I really have a lot of enjoyment.
Cool. So let's discuss that a little bit more. So as far as Herd goes, if you guys ever go to Herd in the future, I believe it's closed right now, but if you ever get to go inside, it's super cool in the sense that there's murals in there painted by Patrick himself. It kind of has a really fun, chic vibe to it. The menu, I would say, is more upscale as far as like the quality goes. They have, again, I don't know what's on the menu. I haven't looked at it in a while, but when I went there, they had really awesome meatballs and like the lollipop lamb chops, I believe, and they had something called the bee's knees lavender drink. Like everything is very upscale and high quality. So let's touch upon the fact that you enjoy designing the inside, working on the murals, creating the events.
Yeah, I mean, it's the beauty of it is when you have your own place, you can create whatever event you want, right? We've had meatball eating contests. At a high end restaurant, we're doing meatball contests. We're doing hot wing contests. Scavenger hunt, which you were there one time, which was amazing. But we took the whole downtown and Middletown, and you'd have teams of 5 people, and you'd have to do this massive scavenger hunt on a Sunday morning. Come back, have cocktails, and the winner wins prizes and so on and so forth. So we did tons of stuff like that. We'd have paint nights. It was 2 years ago. We did a paint night. We had Wade Boggs come down, and he ran the paint night for us. Wade Boggs from obviously the Boston Red Sox and New York Yankees, and that was an incredible night.
Have you ever thought of opening up, I don't know, like a seafood restaurant or something? Because I know Pat has been involved with Herd, which again, it's a variety of different types of food. He also was involved with a Mexican restaurant. Do you want to open up or help open up any other types of food spots? Or are you going to stick to being an artist?
I'm taking a break from restaurants for a little bit because the mural business is kind of, I've been traveling so much, and I started feeling guilty with my partners at Herd. Just wasn't around. I mean, I travel so much. And so the last year I just wasn't kind of there. And I was like, listen, guys, I'm an absentee landlord. It's not fair to you guys. Relinquished my percentage of the business to them. I've known them since I was a little kid, so it's not like I had to sell it back. I just gave it to them. And I said, if you need any help, let me help you out. And do I think I'm going to get back into it at some point? I'm sure, definitely, maybe 5-10 years down the road. But I'll get a little tired. I'm getting older,
Well, and you probably want to focus with your kids a little bit and travel with them and help them out. It's hard wearing many hats and kind of almost like spreading yourself thin. As you've mentioned, you are highly involved with your kids and your family. You also have you're an artist, so you travel all the time, which we're going to be speaking about very shortly. You obviously have helped open up a number of restaurants and social media. Let's discuss social media. So that's actually how Pat and I met. Again, it was through our friend Alexis. So Pat is also involved with a company called Social Tuna. And with that company, he has helped so many freaking brands, including myself, with their websites, with their social media platforms, like you name it, Pat does it all. So let's talk about that. How the heck did you get involved with the social media business to begin with?
This has got to be 10 years ago. I mean, this is sort of Facebook, which is just coming out. There were, so it wasn't as popular like it is now. YouTube was kind of not really, it was just starting to come out a little bit. And I started this website called fauxforum.com. And it was just like a forum where artists can talk to each other from all over the world. And it was a free site. And at that time, I was doing a lot of murals on site. My back was kind of a little blown out. My shoulder was a little blown out. So I wanted to try to create some passive income. I mean, my frustration at the time 10 years ago was I have a glass ceiling as far as a mural artist. I could only do so much work per year. So I'm limited in how much I can make unless I keep raising my prices, which I have. But regardless, I wanted to create more of a business. So I started coming out with these how-to DVDs and these plaster line, and this forum really took off. It was the biggest forum in the decorative painting industry, which is a small industry. But anyways, I started getting calls from companies like Sherwin-Williams. And Sherwin-Williams at the time was coming out with their faux impression line. It was their faux glaze for like artists. And they were like, listen, we want to test bed this product with you. And you obviously have all the eyes and ears going to this forum. You know, can you help me? So they started flying me up to their headquarters in Cleveland, and I helped them out. They started buying advertising on my site, banners. So they were giving me like $1,000 a month or something like that just to put a Sherwin-Williams banner up. And I was like, that's not bad. I mean, $1,000 a month, I'm not doing anything. It's interesting. Then I got touched upon from this IDAL, which is the organization for decorative painters and muralists. And they're like, we have this physical magazine that's bleeding. It's in the red. You know, can you help us turn it digital? And I was like, sure. So I charged them a monthly rate, and then I charged them a percentage of ad sales. That started working really well. So now I've got this $1,000 a month from Sherwin. I got another couple K from IDAL, and I'm getting ad sales on top of it. So I'm making this sort of pseudo passive income, because when I turned the physical magazine to an online magazine, I just went to the faux forum. I grabbed all the artists on there, and I was like, hey, write me stories about your projects and send me pictures. And those were my articles essentially for the magazine. So I just took and I delegated it, right? Blogs started becoming popular at the time, and Facebook's starting to come out, and YouTube's coming out, and all these things are happening. So then one of my big designers, Amy Hirsch down in Greenwich, she wanted to basically create a blog and sort of get into the social media game. So she hired me. And so now I've got 3 sort of little bits of passive income coming in. And I was like, I'm gonna go all in on this. So I actually took like a year off from painting, and I focused on just building the bones of social tuna. And I had done a lot of TV work. I've been on shows like Kitchen Nightmares and Bar Rescue, Extreme Makeover, Tabless Tape. You know, I was the guy in the speed up in the middle of the night that would, you know, redo the whole restaurant with a mural or what have you. So a friend of mine, Nancy Hadley, who was the art director on it and brought me in on all those shows, was talking about a show that was coming out on Spike. It was called Tattoo Rescue, and they need a social media company. So she referred me to them, and for them to me, and we took them on as a client. So then I just started building it out. I started taking my celebrity clients and turning them into social media clients, and small businesses, and the referrals started coming in. And I realized I had something interesting here. I had a business that didn't necessarily need me. You know, I could be the sales guy, I could be the sort of face of it, the 20,000 foot high guy, but I had staff necessarily, you know, they were doing all the work behind the scenes. So after about a year and a half of that, I started getting back into the murals. But what I did was I tripled my price, because it wasn't my only sort of, you know, source of income. So I can wait for those choice projects and turn down the projects I didn't necessarily want. And that actually took my mural business to a whole nother level. And the social media business, they just grow together. They are such a great complement for each other. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I turn a mural client into a social media client, and likewise.
I absolutely love hearing that story. And I kind of knew a little bit, like bits and pieces of that story, having known you for so long and having actually been to Social Tuna, and me having gone to your restaurants like we've spoken about, and being involved with like the different scavenger hunts. Let me tell you guys, when I say Pat is one of the most professional, but yet fun people you will ever meet. He's the type of guy that like you can probably have a beer with while he's painting your mural, and the mural will come out amazing. You'll be like, what the heck? 3D looks so realistic. And with the social media, I know that you are involved with clothing companies, athletes, celebrities. Some people that you currently work with are Wade Boggs, have worked with Roseanne, Denise Richards. Let's talk about some of the celebrities that you are currently involved with, and what exactly do you do for them, and how do people get in touch with you? Because, say, for example, I have a professional athlete that's listening to this episode. If they want you to help them out with their social media, do they slide into your DMs? Do they send you an email? What's the deal?
Yeah, I mean, typically I like referrals. Like, I don't really go out looking for new business, and it's really a referral based sort of platform, because I like people to come in already knowing what my reputation is, who I am, and what my price point is. I don't have to sell anybody. It's kind of like, you know what you're getting. This is what it is, and I prefer it that way. I consider myself more of a boutique business when it comes to that. We don't have a huge client list. We focus on, you know, this amount, and we focus heavily on this amount to make sure it's successful. And we have such different ways of doing it. You know, some people pay a monthly fee, some people pay a monthly plus a percentage on sales, and it really is negotiated at the time. But I think one of my favorite like new social media clients would be Chevy Chase. You know, I met Chevy, I think it's got to be a year and a half, 2 years now, and then I met his family, his wife Janie and daughters, all amazing people. I mean, the family is like the nicest family in the world. They're just great, great people. And I've had so much fun working with him and his family on building up his platform, because he's done such iconic films like Christmas Vacation and Caddyshack and Fletch. And to be a part of a little bit of the growth in the social media end is awesome. I also had the ability to design all of his merchandise. So I designed the shirts for him, the stickers, like all the products that you see sold on officialchevychase.com. And that was a referral from Darren Prince from Prince Marketing Group as well.
I love the fact that you were taking some of these iconic people who back in the day when they were at the height of their career, like Wade Boggs, for example, like Chevy Chase, there was no such thing as Instagram. There was no such thing as Facebook. So here you are being like, yo, you guys are like iconic people. People should be seeing what you were up to in the past and what you're doing now, and creating merchandise and creating different products and just basically showcasing what they're up to. So I think it's awesome that you are able to tap into that and help out celebrities, essentially developing their brand and their name.
It's fun. It is a lot of fun, and it's very interesting. And, you know, you find yourself in like these amazing situations when you're traveling around, you know.
Well, guys, please stay tuned with us. I'm your host, Brittany Baldy. This is definitely not your typical sports show. Today we have on my friend, Patrick Ganino. He's a muralist and entrepreneur. Yes, The Boss Babes is a lifestyle sports podcast, but if you guys stay tuned with us, you will understand why we are talking to Pat, because again, this man not only is a good friend of mine, but wears many freaking hats. And one of the things that he does is he works alongside professional athletes. He has made murals of Arnold Schwarzenegger, Michael Jordan, freaking Magic Johnson, Rob Gronkowski. We are going to be talking about that shortly. But before we get into that, we're on the topic of Instagram. So if you guys look at Patrick's Instagram, his Instagram is simply his name. It's just at Patrick Ganino, Ganino. It's blue, check mark, and verified. So please go give him a follow. But okay. I loved that on your Instagram, it literally says in his bio, I enjoy the art of business and the business of art. So before we even get into your artwork, I want to ask you, how did you come up with that slogan, and what exactly does that mean to you?
Well, you know, even going back to starting this forum online and meeting artists from all over the world, I ended up writing a book in 2007. My wife, I actually just talked into a microphone, and she's a talented writer, so she typed it up and made me sound smart. But the book came out and it was called The Business of Faux, and it was basically teaching artists how to make money. So artists typically, they find themselves sort of in this position where they're creating this artwork, but they don't feel that they're good business people. They feel like, oh, I'm just not good at business. And my sort of thought process is the same creative aspect that goes into creating art or figuring out how to create a huge mural or whatever it may be. It's the same process that it goes into being a good business person. So there's an art to being a good business person, and you have to be focused on the business of art to be an artist forever. A lot of artists, they starve for one reason or another, whereas I don't think it has to be that way. People love art and they'll spend money on art. And, you know, I have a great life for 20 years doing art. I wake up every day happy, excited. And so I would end up traveling around the country doing these seminars after I did the book. I would get hired by these different organizations to talk to 20 or 40 artists at a time about the business, you know, portion of art. And a lot of the common denominator would be these artists would be like, you know, I just don't feel comfortable, like, you know, talking about my art to people. I feel like I'm bragging. I'm like, listen, I'll tell everybody that I do art. I tell everybody about my murals. I'll tell them about my Instagram, because if you don't tell them, how are they going to know that you're an interesting individual and that you do it? I mean, that's how you get sales. So if I tell, you know, so-and-so on the street corner that I'm a mural artist and I take the time to show them a picture of my work and blah, 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 they may have an aunt or an uncle or a cousin or a mom or a dad that is interested in it. And they're going to think of me because I put the time into it. I don't see it as bragging at all.